Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Becoming a Techno Wizard. um, just did my mock interview. It was all right. I did pretty good, I think. I feel like I was stumbling a lot, like how I do when I try to think of a good way to answer things and hit certain points that I know need to be hit and all that stuff. Have these filler words. I kept hearing my filler words and my pauses and everything like that. But my career coach said I did pretty good. She didn't think I stumbled a lot. So I don't know, but always got to be better. So got to practice more with that. But I'm not gonna practice right now. Right now, I'm gonna reward myself by finishing the Founders Fund Manifesto. So if we don't recall, we did two other episodes. I'm gonna put it up there. Maybe if I remember, put those annotations up there. um, but yeah, I really like that manifesto stuff, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish that. I have not been reading it. I did not read it since last time, so like we just straight reaction. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Beam, 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 and open that up. Here we go. Yes, sir. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna put my view screen in the middle, so I'm not looking at myself off to the side. Look at y'all. I'm sorry, yeah. I don't look at myself because I want to look at myself. It's because I'm like imagining myself talking to an audience, to like you. And when I see like a face, that's what I look at. And it just happens to be my face. So that's why I need to make sure I put my view screen right here in the middle. Um, hold up, somebody's texting me. Can I pause this? I need to pause. Okay, and we're back. All right. So, energy, part E. Oh, just so you know, if you recall, the last couple ones we had AI, biotechnology, aerospace in the introduction, and we got internet and conclusion left. So almost done. All right. The correlation between wealth and energy use is extremely high, and whichever direction the causality runs, a future world of greater material comfort is going to be one that uses more energy, certainly in the aggregate. Unfortunately, conventional sources of energy are extremely problematic, tangled up with political and environmental costs, and in the case of oil, significant geologic constraints. Alternative sources of energy represent a tremendous opportunity, but as persistently rising rising real cost of energy shows, we have made little progress in generating more energy more cheaply. And annotation: rising energy costs can reflect many factors, including the internalization of externalities, but as a general matter, real progress should result in a downwardly sloped curve. Even so, either because new sources of energy were cheaper or because they came with fewer externalities, or preferably both. So before we even get into this, man, I'm already thinking, like, I tried to do a video a couple days back about another podcast I was listening to. Um, this specific episode was called Civilization. It was about, it said, a major quote was civilized to death. I think that was a book one of the speakers wrote. And that one, I'm not even gonna go into that because I can go a whole thing with that. Unfortunately, when I tried to record it, I was doing my phone and messed up several times. Blah blah blah. Whatever. I'm gonna have to do that one over. But the point is, during the course of that podcast and my recording of my thoughts on it, one of the biggest things um, that I recalled, or that I wanted to speak about, was this very fact of energy. Specifically, in my mind, the problem of energy lies in its centralization. So the fact that we have centralized energy is a good thing for cities. However, it's a bad thing for self-empowerment and for self-sustainability. So we claim that we are individuals, individualistic people, and there's a problem with that thought. I'm not saying that's a good thing, because we've evolved to be social creatures. We've evolved to live in communities, and the fact that we have isolated ourselves from each other is more does more harm than good. But the fact that we do live in cities, and the fact that we kind of force people to live in cities, because without it, you would have significantly worse access to resources such as energy, water, and so forth. But energy is a really big problem, because right now the only real energy that's out there that's decentralized is dirty, is like oil, is gas. Is burning these fuels that cause negative ramifications to nature. And so a lot of places like India, or some places in Africa, they have to use like charcoal and all this other oil based products that pollutes their environment. um, and in cities, the cities that we live in today, like I'm in Atlanta, whatever city you're in, you most likely live on a grid. So you have to pay an electricity bill that goes to somewhere else, that most of us don't even know how our electricity really gets made. um, in America, most of it, right, gets made through natural gas. Um, and the problem with that is that we're dependent on the city's electricity, on this this grid, right? But my idea, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have this idea as well, is that we need to decentralize electricity and energy in general. Is that we need to create. That's why solar panels is so powerful, because you can have like a solar panel on your roof, right? And if you get enough um, if you get enough sunlight, and if your solar panels are efficient enough, you can run on that most of the time. So you can run off the grid. And some places you have so much solar power that you can even, sell that energy to other people, to like sell it back into the grid. But the big problem with that, uh, especially solar power, is that we don't have a good way to store it. Like we don't have very efficient batteries that store something like solar powered electricity. So I would love to see more innovation and uh, more investment in technologies that allow us to have like energy cells that have, and I got this from another podcast, the idea of energy cells that allows you to store energy in like little batteries, or really efficient batteries. Doesn't have to be little, it could be big. But so that, imagine, instead of paying a bill for your house, you can buy a battery at a store, um, and it powers your house for the next year, right? And you don't pay any more bills. It just powers everything in your house, right? So that allows you to have a more uh I don't want to say individualistic, but a more self-contained, self-sufficient system. So uh, the benefits of that for living in a city is not super great unless you live in a city that has like a lot of outages. But if you live in a place where, like in a country where you don't get very high amounts of energy capacity coming in, or you don't get a lot of, uh, you just don't live on the grid, right? You might have a lot of outages, or you just don't have a lot of output, or anything like that. You can buy one of these batteries and you can run your entire house. You can run your farm. You can run your factory, whatever it is, off the grid. And that would be super dope. And it's even more beneficial for people who don't live in an industrialized or quote unquote developed nation, because now in like these rural towns in the middle of nowhere in Africa or something like that, they can have these batteries that runs their entire village, and they don't have to build up the infrastructure to create electric grids between cities and between different communities. So that will go a long, long, long way in improving our way of life, and our quality of life for everybody, and whether you're urban or not. So definitely, I'm with this. Okay, cost of energy goes up. Look at that, just steadily been going up the past 20 years, 30 years. A lot of money has poured into clean technologies. Investments that have focused on efficiency improvements have done well as a financial matter, but investments in alternative energies for actually generating energy have not produced particularly good results. We believe that is because many companies pursue the wrong model. They seek to be almost as good as the default product rather than as should be the case generally, so much better than a default that customers were rushed to switch. Exactly. Oh my gosh. Like how many times you hear a new, energy like think when Georgia Gas or one of those companies were new, when we switched over, I mean it wasn't like a no-brainer thing. It was just like, oh, that one's too expensive. This one's a little bit less expensive, right? It's not. It wasn't anything about, oh, this is we have way more energy now. We can do way more with this, or it's way less. It's way less expensive, or anything like that. It's just moderate. It's incremental. So imagine, if you will, Amazon.com were somewhat less convenient than going into and offered similar prices to a brick and mortar store. Would you use it? Probably not. People only flocked to Amazon when it became substantially better. Exactly. What we need are companies developing sources of energy that are as good as or better than conventional sources at lower prices and at scale. Unfortunately, relatively few companies research such sources, preferring instead incremental improvements on long established alternative technologies, wind and solar, whose physical limitations mean they cannot satisfy these requirements. But there is no reason to believe that we can't invent an alternative to alternatives. So this is exactly what I was saying. Solar and wind power are really cool in that they're renewable and stuff like that. But the problem is that they're extremely inefficient. I said that in the last video, I think, and that solar, even the best solar, only gets like 20% of uh the sun, like the sunlight that hits the panel. Only 20% of that is converted into usable energy or something like that, right? And I think it's even worse for wind power. It's like 10% or maybe even less than that. And they're huge, right? They take up so much space. And solar panels, they're great, but they're actually very difficult and dirty to make. In that, and what I mean by that is that the materials that goes into making solar panels are harmful to the environment. It's harmful to mine them up. Like they use very rare metals that have to be mined, and usually, unfortunately, a lot of them are mined unethically. Um, and then in order to craft them, to manufacture them, there's a lot of negative byproducts, right? So I think this is probably gonna go into solar. I mean, no, it's gonna go to nuclear energy, because has been grossly undervalued and grossly over risk. Like people think that nuclear poses a bigger risk than it really does. Again, I talked about that in the last. Did I talk about this whole thing before? Maybe. But like, you know, nuclear power is not nearly as harmful as people are saying it is. Like, yes, there are risks, but it's actually can be way safer than most any other type of energy, like oil, um, even solar and wind. Wind kills. Those windmills kill like hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of birds a year, right? And they disrupt their migratory patterns. Um, and solar is not very useful in a lot of places around the world, and again, to manufacture is very harmful to the environment. So nuclear is actually a self-contained system that is far more efficient at extracting the energy, at transferring the energy, whatever you want to call it. Is far more efficient an energy source than any other ones that we have today. And geothermal is another grossly undervalued energy source. You can actually use volcanoes or really magma, like cracks in the, like, you're not making cracks, but you're going down to a natural fault line and using the magma from under the earth. That's extremely powerful. And I don't know what other energies we might have. Maybe we can try to figure out how to use freaking gravity. uh, I mean, gravity's pretty weak on the micro scale. That's why it's. But anyways, yeah, there's a lot of different ways we need to think about energy. The internet, part F. It's become fashionable among VCs to say that the internet is dead. Paradoxically, even as venture portfolios become more and more concentrated in the same few consumer internet companies and their clones. The problem with web bashing, of course, is that the internet is one of the most powerful technologies ever created, and that the idea that we have exhausted its potential 2 decades after we started exploiting it commercially is as ridiculous as saying that there is nothing left to do with electricity after the light bulb. Wow. Again, this is something that was somewhat mentioned before, but yeah, definitely, like, people all the time like be hating on the internet, like, oh, it's boring, it's, we've discovered everything we need to discover, we created everything that should be created on the internet, blah blah blah. But the internet is still in its infancy. Like, there's so much that we haven't done with the internet that we can think about, and that's theoretically possible. We just haven't done because people are too focused on the low hanging fruit. Sad. Companies like Facebook, Spotify, and YouTube demonstrate that there is life after pets.com. Advances in cloud and other computing technologies radically reduce the cost of starting and running new businesses, creating opportunities for even larger returns. As a general matter, internet companies that will outperform are the companies that take the internet seriously as a technology for transferring information on a scale and at a level of convenience that can't be replicated elsewhere, and that have a plan for translating those advantages into cash. Yep, yep. They probably won't look anything like the companies that exist today. All great companies, internet and otherwise, tend to be sui generis. What in the world? Sui generis? I've never heard of this phrase before. Let me look that up. Sui generis. Yeah, such a weird.
generous.
Sui generis. That's a weird word. I don't know. Some Latin words just don't be hitting. They don't got that flow to it. People try to use them, but they don't be hitting, man. Oh, sorry. I wasn't even looking at what that means. Let me pull that back up. Of its own kind, used to describe form of legal protection of its own kind in a class by itself, therefore unique. Okay. So you couldn't just say unique. Had to try to use a fancy Latin word that didn't sound right. Okay. But yeah, I agree. Like my own company, I'm trying to produce one day is like how I'm thinking about it, it's like nothing that exists right now. Like, I don't want to have typical employees. I want everybody that's using the platform to be able to make money from it. So it's almost like paying everybody that's using the platform, but not really. It's because they are paying themselves. Like, whenever they sell something, they make money off of it and the company makes money off of it. But that's not the only way. Like, it'll run in like a blockchain type of thing, so you can earn currency by discovering certain things, by doing certain tasks that other people want you to do, and so forth and so on. Um, so a number of things that can be very unique in that matter. And I want my company to be like a game, like the very, like, using a product, uh, interacting with the product is everything is like a game. It's like a game world. So you go in there, it's automatically in a world. There's no like app website or anything like that. You just get immersed into the world of the product and stuff like that. The Flubbyverse. So I imagine there would be a number of things like that. Like Decentraland is a good example. Um, and I don't know, other places out there. Yeah, it'd just be a lot of really cool stuff. And finally, G, conclusion. Our list is by no means exhaustive. The best companies create their own sectors. As a general matter, the most promising companies, at least from our perspective as investors, tend to share a few characteristics. One, they are not popular. Popular investments tend to be pricey, e.g. Groupon at so many dozens of billions. And where is Groupon now? Two, they are difficult to assess. This contributes to their lack of popularity. Yep, yep. Three, they have technology risk, but not insurmountable technology risk. Yep. And four, if they succeed, their technology will be extraordinarily valuable. Oh, most definitely. We have no idea what these companies might look like, only that they probably will share these characteristics. Entrepreneurs often know better than we do what might be enormously valuable in the future. Not all real technology companies make serious money. Often, even great technologies fail to earn the investors fail to earn the inventors or investors a return, like Nikola Tesla. Yep, unfortunately. In our experience, it really does matter who runs the business because the world does not beat a path to the door of the better mousetrap. Shockley Semiconductor, Fairchild Semiconductor, and Intel all successfully resolved roughly similar technical problems, but only Intel truly prospered. Poor management consigned the other two to also ran status. Oh yeah, that's like kind of sad, but kind of also interesting. Is that you can invent the next new thing, but like somebody else said, in innovation, is different from invention. Like invention is like creating something new and unique and different and change something that can change the world. But innovation is executing on it, is making it scale so it actually does change the world. So the companies that make a lot of money, the companies that make a lot of change are the ones that are really good at innovation as well as invention. Or maybe not invention, but definitely innovation. Invention is kind of optional, but you need to be able to at least recognize invention, be able to find the inventors, be able to attract the inventors, whatever, and then innovate and then scale, those creations. And that involves operations, that involves management, that involves sales, that involves marketing, all that stuff. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's all a collaboration effort. Technology matters, but so do teams. Like I just said that. A curious point: companies can be mismanaged, not just by their founders, but by VCs who kick out or overly control founders in an attempt to impose adult supervision. VCs boot roughly half of company founders from the CEO position within 3 years of investment. Man, that is tragic. That's why I'm so scared of like looking out for investment and like giving them a piece of my company. Because like if I make a company and I spent all that money and all that time, all that effort, all that creativity to make it like amazing and big and something that is worth of investment, I don't believe in giving like 50% of my company or to all these other people. Like I definitely agree that you need a strong team and everything like that. I would rather give the percentage of my company to the actual team, to the actual people on the ground giving it. That's why I'm so like that's why it's good for me to read this, because it's good to know that there are founders. I mean, there are VCs out there that aren't just in it for that really want to change the world and aren't just in it for like the making a quick buck, right? It's good for me to hear that there are VCs who really value the team, really value the vision, and it's scary that all these really creative founders can be out there and get an investor, and the investor thinks that just because they give them all this money, that means that they can kick them out of the business. Like you lose the very value, the long-term value of that business if you're kicking out the visionary that made it relevant in the first place. Like a great example is Steve Jobs. He may not have been a super great person on a managerial level, but he was very different. He was definitely a visionary. And the fact that they pushed him out, and then they had to call him back in to fix, the product in that time that they pushed him out, shows you that you know you need the visionary if you want to keep changing the world, if you want to keep staying amongst the change makers. Like if you just want to make a business and just let it roll on its operations, then yeah, maybe you can have these operational people, but you need those people. You need visionaries and operations people to be working together. If you're kicking out one, or if you're too scared to have operations people, then you're not going to have that big business that's going to continue to change the world on a daily basis, on a decade by decade basis. We're looking for the long term here. Anyways, in 3 years of investment, Founders Fund has never removed a single founder. Wow, look at that. See, we invest in teams we believe in rather than in companies we like to run. And our data suggests that finding good founding teams and leaving them in place tends to produce higher returns overall. Exactly, man. That's exactly it. And that's the major reason why I haven't started my own company, is because even though I have very much high faith in what I want to do, and I do have people that want to work with me, I haven't found that team yet, right? Uh, And that's partially because I'm a very isolated person, like a very introverted person, and my background is very different than where you would find those typical people who will work on these sorts of products. Like I don't know any technical people to the level that can work on the product that I want to work on. I only know two people, like from my childhood or from my job experience. Two people that were really coders that I was friends with, right? Um, and like I've been around other coders and stuff like that. I've worked with other people, but in terms of having a deep relationship, I've only really had like two of those like really deep friends that I would want to make a company with. So for me, I know that's why this is why I I I want to have patience, and I know one day I'll find those people. I don't want to just go to like some random technical person that's really cool or really talented, and be like, hey, can you work with me? And blah 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 blah. Yeah, I don't really believe in that. I think you have to create these relationships organically. You work together on some other projects, um, and you eventually find that you work well together, and you believe in the same things together, and then you can create that company together. Yeah, I think if you do so the other way, there's way too many ways to fail. There's already making a startup, making a company is already super difficult. So doing so with a person that you don't really know that well, that you haven't really worked with, is one too many risks for me. I'd rather take a risk where I'm working with somebody who I really trust, who I really know can do what needs to be done, and who I really know understands the vision. Um, then I can make other risks and be okay with it. But that is one too many risks. Okay. So indeed, we have often tried to ensure that founders can continue to run their businesses through voting control mechanisms, as Peter Thiel did with Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. This approach, we believe, accords with common sense. No entrepreneur, however good, knows precisely how their company's business model will evolve over time. Indeed, when investing in a startup, you invest in people who have the vision and flexibility and the flexibility to create a success. It therefore makes no sense to destroy the asset you just bought. Exactly. As a corollary, it makes no sense to shackle a company to the Procrustean bed of its original business model. Ooh, that's interesting word. Procrustean bed of its original business model. I agree. Procrustean means enforcing uniformity or conformity without regard to natural variation of a individual. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely. Businesses really do evolve over time, and changing models in the early years is anything but a sign of weakness. PayPal went through 5 different business models before arriving at one that worked. We do not expect that the first business model for a company will be the final or best business model, and do not see evolution as a negative. The most powerful models are the ones that can be changed. Most definitely, like that's the thing. Like you have to have a strong team so that you all can evolve together. Like you can keep on learning, keep on changing things, keep on iterating until you find something that you can stick with and scale with. But if you don't really trust your team enough to do that, then that's why things fail so easily. Swinging for the fences is probably less risky than people think. VC usually depends on a few runaway hits to drive returns, supplemented with a few smaller successes and a lot of failures. It seems unlikely as a general proposition that a company with limited ambitions will evolve into a runaway hit, i.e., a company that aspires to crank out a single app for the iPhone probably never returns to an Oracle. So we need to invest in at least some ambitious companies. But how many? Our answer is that substantially all of the capital in our portfolio should be directed to companies with audacious vision seeking enormous markets. Yes, yes, please. Several factors command that conclusion. First, plenty of capital already pursues companies with more moderate ambitions and a lower perceived work. 1 second. Sorry about that. But yeah, several factors command that conclusion. First, plenty of capital already pursue companies with. Oh yeah, yeah. First, plenty of capital already pursues companies with more moderate ambitions and a lower perceived degree of risk. This tends to push up valuations for those companies and correspondingly depress returns, which of course increases overall portfolio risk. Also, less ambitious firms, almost by definition, do not change the world. We believe our purpose as venture capitalists is to earn an attractive return by funding positive transformation. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that. I'm on. Yes. Another paradoxical reason is that companies pursuing transformational ideas are somewhat likelier to succeed in them than less ambitious companies. Ooh, I love that. That's yeah, because you're passionate about it. You're gonna make it work. If you're not passionate about it, if you're not passionate about your big vision, then when the obstacles come, you're just gonna be like, oh damn, oh well, right? You're not gonna really want to keep pushing for it. Anyways, a company with a readily obtainable goal, checkers for the iPhone. lacks a technological barrier to entry, because, of course, the original problem was easy, and their end markets are typically quite limited, meaning that they might not achieve the scale necessary for exit. But most importantly, we believe that brightest and most creative problem solvers seek the hardest and most interesting problems, and gathering the best technical talent is obviously a major competitive advantage. That's another part I didn't really realize is too, is that the barrier to entry. So if you pursue a problem that most people don't think is possible, if you pursue the impossible, then when you do achieve it, and or if you do achieve it, it's going to be harder for other people to follow you. They're going to be like, oh wow, they just did the impossible. They're going to be like, whoa, how do you do that? It's basically magic to them. That's why you have no competition. That's why places like Amazon is so far out there, is because they did something that most people thought was ridiculous. Like online commerce, that wasn't a big thing before. People were like, oh, you're never going to get people to buy things online. You're never going to get people to put their credit card information online, right? That was ridiculous to people. Like, people did not think that was possible. People did not think that was real. And now look at it. And now and Amazon's still pushing it. Like, you can give Amazon flack for all their problems, but they still keep pushing. Like freaking 1 day shipping. 1 day. We just talked about in the last video how before it took weeks, if not months, to order something online. Weeks and not weeks or even months. Even to this day, when you order something that's not from Amazon, it usually takes a couple weeks. Even the fastest shipping might take 7 to 14 days. But Amazon, you get Amazon Prime, you get it in 2-3 days. Now they got this new thing, you get it a day. They even got ones where you get it in a few hours if you live close enough to the warehouse. You get it in a few hours, right? Like, they keep pushing. And that is such a difficult thing for other people to replicate, that you never will see another Amazon, at least not anytime soon, because they keep pushing the boundaries. They keep making the impossible possible. And that's what you have to do if you really want to change the world. Let's see. The vision thing. This brings us to another counterintuitive point. The best founders want to radically change the world for the better. Yes. Too many investors, visionary entrepreneurs come off as naive, or worse. Isn't it safer, easier, more profitable to create another social network for cat fanciers than to try to cure cancer, defeat terrorism, or organize the world's information? The problem is that all startups are difficult. Long hours, low pay, and fierce competition wear on even the most dedicated teams. Exactly. So I'm pretty sure they're going to get into the fact that, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of effort. So if you're not doing something that you really care about, you're going to give up. But anyways, let's continue. The entrepreneurs who make it have a near messianic, how you say that word? I know what they're saying, like, like Jesus attitude, and believe that their company is essential to make the world a better place. Yep. It doesn't matter whether everyone agrees with the entrepreneur about the world historical nature of the project. If the entrepreneur seeks an impact beyond his own payday and can convince employees of the same, the project is much more likely to get done. The engineers at SpaceX are passionate about commercializing and colonizing space. Profit is a significant byproduct of their extraordinary effort to achieve that goal, but not enough to get them to pull the thousandth all-nighter. The same is true of Jobs at Apple, or the programmers at Palantir, or the researchers at new drug companies. Early in the company's life, an entrepreneur can make enough money to satisfy his own needs, though often not much of return for the investor. To take a company from 50 million to 50 billion requires singular vision and dedication. While that passion is not a bad thing by any means. Yes, oh my gosh. And it's sad that so many people see this thing as like a bad thing, as like aspirational, or, arrogant, or, unrealistic. The, the, the thing with ambition is that, especially for people, if you yourself feel like, if you yourself are a humble person, like, you're not trying to be Jesus. It's not like you're trying to be like, oh, I'm gonna be God. No, that's not that's why I hate, like, this. There's a very huge problem with this. Like, people see founders as like, they're trying to be God, they're trying to, control the world. No, that's not the thing. That's the 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 vision for most founders who are ethical, who are good people, is that we want to, and I say we because even though I'm not a founder yet, I see myself as a visionary. I see myself as somebody who wants to pursue these big things. And that when I have a vision, I see it as like the world right now is like in a bad place, right? Like there's a lot of unrest, social unrest. There's a lot of bad things that happens, like poverty, freaking, depression, loneliness, all these problems. And I really believe that we can solve these problems with technology. I believe that if we do this, that, and the other thing, it will solve this problem. It will make the world a better place. And so I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm God, or I need to rule the world. No, it's like I think the world can be better, and here's how we can make it better. As simple as that. And unfortunately, there's other people who are not ambitious. There's other people who feel threatened by that. Maybe because they're insecure, maybe because they don't understand, maybe because maybe they don't agree with the vision. And that's fine, but don't don't try to prescribe malice because you're ignorant or just because you disagree, right? If you disagree with somebody on where they think the world should go, then you make your company. You find something that you believe in so much that you would push and push and push to make it happen, right? Oh man, I can go on about this, but yeah, I definitely full-heartedly agree with all this. It pays to be different. People frequently say that contrarian investments outperform conformist investments. Is that true? It's difficult to make the case directly, but the indirect evidence is suggestive. As we've seen, whatever the bottom 80% of the VC industry is doing now is losing money for investors. Clearly, the mainstream VC model does not work very well. Even if it did, the problem with consensus investments is that their prices reflect broad agreement. So even if they work, they tend to produce unspectacular returns. That is not the present problem, of course, because the consensus does not work at all. And what does it mean to be contrarian? It does not mean to simply doing the opposite of what the majority does. Nah, that's just consensus thinking by different guys and minus sign before the conventional wisdom. Yep, yep. The problems of reactive contrarianism are the same as those of following the herd. The most contrarian thing to do is to think independently. It is not without its risks because there is no cover from the crowd and because it frequently leads to conclusions with which no one else agrees. Most definitely. Like people always say that, oh, you're trying to be contrarian because you don't believe what we believe. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm not trying to believe opposite. I'm not trying to just say whatever you say is wrong. I'm just thinking independently. I'm just like looking at the facts, looking at the history, and be like, if I take my own journey, I'm gonna go down a different path. And people don't realize that a lot of times we have to go down that different path. We have to go look at the original facts. We have to go look at um we have to try to understand the situation for ourselves. And then we will come to a conclusion. Sometimes that conclusion is the same thing as you did. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool, I agree. But even then, it has a context behind it. I can tell you why I agree. If I ask somebody today why they believe this and that, like why do you go to church on Sunday? I used to do that all the time when I was SDA, when I was 7 Day Adventist. I was like, okay, for 7 Day Adventist, we go to church on Saturday because this, that, and the other. And I'm like, okay, for Sunday, for Catholics or for other Christians, why do you go to church on a Sunday? Most of them can't even answer. They're like, I don't know, because my mom does, right? And that's the problem is that it makes your faith or your belief, it makes whatever your knowledge, whatever you believe in, it makes it shallow because you don't understand the reason why. You don't understand the logic. You don't understand the strategy. You don't understand the depth. So you need to go down your own path. You need to understand. You need to do the work to understand something in your own words. All right. And if you do, you will understand the world a lot better. Things will make a lot more sense to you and you will feel more empowered. You will feel more capable of changing the world yourself. Like I believe I can change the world not because I'm naive or I understand how hard it's going to be, but I've gotten to this point because I consistently, constantly looked at, how we got here today and realized that the changes that we see are not made by people who are like gods. They're just made by people like you and me, like regular people. They just believed in what they were doing, right? So, man, this is the gospel right here. Like you really got to take your own path. And it's not again, it's not about taking the opposite path of somebody else. It's just taking your own journey. Sometimes you go to you end up in the same conclusion. sometimes you end up in a different conclusion. Whatever you do, you have to have confidence that the path you took is your path, is independent, is that you got there with the using the correct logic and steps and stuff like that. Anyways, let's continue. Investing in companies doing things that are breathtakingly new, ambitious is provocative. It is not what our industry is best at doing, at least not in the past decade, and there's no way to assure a positive return, but at least it has a chance of working. Simply doing what everyone else does is not enough. Beautiful. Beautiful. You have to run the experiment. There are unknowables. Venture investments mature over long periods, and there are many confounding variables. From variable economic conditions to a shifting legal landscape, everything is overdetermined. Venture is a secretive industry, and legal structures cramp down on disclosures. We have data that suggests that what doesn't work, the status quo, and implies what might. But we have no direct evidence for the proposition that we ought to be investing in smart people solving difficult technical problems. In this sense, we are in the same position as our companies, which also operate with imperfect information. SpaceX has failed 3 launches before making history with its fourth. PayPal went through 5 business models before it found something that worked. And the history of Facebook's initiatives is by no means an unalloyed record of success. Still, you have to run the experiment. Mm-mm-mm. Yep, that's it. Yeah. We do believe that our method should outperform, and we also believe it's the shortest route to social value. So we will continue to invest in very talented entrepreneurs who are pushing ambitious, challenging tasks. We will treat them with respect and hope for the best. Written by Bruce Gibney. Gibney. Bruce, thank you, man. Bruce, that was beautiful. That was that was phenomenal. Um, I'm with you. I'm all with you. Made me want to get up and start my startup, man. Like, jeez, this was great. This is really great. I like reading this. I hope y'all learned something. I hope y'all enjoyed this as well. Um, I'm gonna read this again probably whenever I feel down or insecure about my vision. Not my vision. I'm never really insecure about the vision, but like executing on it. Like, you know, maybe I should just be a solo founder. Like, even though I know I need a really strong technical team, and even though I know I need to have a strong relationship with whoever my technical co-founders will be. Shoot, man, maybe I need to go ahead and start it. Like, it's not like I'm sitting on my haunches. Like, every day I'm always researching. I'm always looking at competitors. I'm always, more importantly, I'm always building. Like, I'm still to this day, brick by brick, working on my ideas. I always write down like, okay, you know, what is the business model? What is the uh, operations? What is the product? How does the product work? I'm always honing down on that product, and now with these design skills, I can actually prototype things. So now I'm actually building out wireframes. I'm building out prototypes for how the product will work, and pretty soon I'll be able to test it out with real users. So even if I feel like I'm not really starting my company, at least I'm working on it. I'm trying to make a improvements on it, trying to test it out in the real world, and making sure that it's not all in my head. Um, but yeah, reading stuff like this is so motivating, so inspiring. So thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Founders Fund. Um, this is phenomenal, and I hope it helps any of you out there that wants to start your own thing, that has a vision for the world, that wants to make the world a better place. Just go for it, and just believe in yourself, believe in your vision, believe in the principles that you want to embody. Believe in the change that you want to see in the world. Believe in the radical, positive impact that you want to make, and make it. Man, this is dope. So thanks for watching. And once again, I hope you were inspired and motivated as well. Hope you learned something. Have a good day. Bye bye.